Hey guys, today I'm going to be painting my friend Erik Dail. Erik is a great friend. I've known him almost all my life. He is the front man of the band Hurts to Laugh based out of Nashville, Tennessee. He's a talented musician and a really fun guy. Was one of my favorite interviews to do to date. So please, without further ado, my good friend Erik.
So, Erik, let's go ahead and set the stage. How long have we known each other?
Golly, forever. Since 80, it had to have been 86, late 86 or something. And I can't even remember the kid's name that introduced us. And we met through, he had dark hair and we went and saw, Rad. He had a VCR and he had Rad on at his house. And I think that he was who introduced us. He lived over across from, I can't even remember the name of the neighborhood anymore. It was across from Lemon Haven Mall, and it was Hawaiian Hula Dude or whatever that like he was.
Oh yeah. It was Jeff. Was his name Jeff?
Yeah, you called him Hula Hula Fat Dude or something like that because he was like half Hawaiian and like.
No. That guy I don't remember, but I remember his name, and he was from Hawaii. His dad was in the Navy.
He like stole my handlebars or like at one point like we were hanging out and but he ended up stealing some stuff. Like he stole
I know.
my Hutch handlebars and like yeah, we didn't hang out after that.
I think I know who you're talking about. He was kind of Samoan, Hawaiian, and
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He hung out with that dude, with that Samoan dude.
Okay, so it was that I think his name was Jeff then.
That's
Skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. I had a falling out with him too, so I guess it's kind of mutual.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that had to have been. I mean, it was like after Rad had come out, and I guess that came out in '86, and so like it was like late '86 or early '87 when we met.
Oh wow.
And I was at Plaza Junior High School at that point, or Princess Anne or Plaza Junior High School. And you're a year ahead of me in school, so.
Yeah.
You're like trying to concentrate and like talk and paint at the same time.
Yeah, that's how it goes here. I've already done 2 minutes, and everybody's been staring at a blank canvas, so I better get painting here. I really like this photo.
Should I you like the photo that you're working from?
Yeah.
Have you got a picture of that to show the people? Like before?
I'll pop it up. I'll pop it up for sure.
Otherwise, I could just like stare at a point, and you can just like, I'll just stay really still. I've been told I've been like a pretty good model, a good portrait model.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that I can like stay in one place and not move. They paid me money for that. They paid me like $100, $120 or something
Did
like
you
that.
do the modeling for figure drawing?
No, well, no, they were painting they were like doing portraits or whatever. So
okay.
and it was like what, like 2.5 hour sessions or whatever that they would do. But I didn't have to get naked or anything like that. They just let me.
Have to drop trowel.
I didn't get naked for that.
Yeah, that takes a special person. I'm not one of them.
Right. Well, I did have another model that did that day. She just did like a series of like quick like drawing poses at the beginning of the class, and then she had some sort of like pose thing that she had worked out. Yeah, they were always like, I'm the only one that just goes up there and just kind of sits there. I don't like, and they actually say that I'm really still. I can just sit there, but I don't try to do anything extravagant or crazy. I just give them, whatever. I just wear some nice clothes and, that's what you get.
Yeah, that's it. It's I have to say that one of the things that I found that was you really appreciate is a model who stays still.
Yeah.
And you really want to throttle anybody that just fidgets all the time. I mean,
it's not easy to do, but it can be done.
Let's get back to the how we first met. What was your bike that you were riding back then?
Well, my first legit, the one I was riding back then, and my first legit BMX bike was a Schwinn Freeform EX. It was a 86 Schwinn Freeform EX. It had white mags, and it had white, cheap white mags, and it had a powder blue frame. It was all white and powder blue color scheme.
I think I remember that.
That was my first bike. I started riding that a lot, and then, but then I saved up some money and I was able to get it. My best bike was my favorite bike was my Redline RL22. That was an 86 Redline RL22, and it was set up really well. It had the Peregrine rims. It had the Redline flight cranks. It had Redline bars, the whole 9 yards. It was a really sweet bike, but it got stolen.
I remember that.
And
Gang run.
That sucked.
I remember that. You were going to school and they cut the lock.
They cut the lock, yeah.
I remember that.
So that was a bummer.
Yeah, that really. Getting your bike stolen sucks. It is.
There's a special place in hell for bike thieves. They're like horse thieves. They're just like not cool.
Yeah. There's a special place in hell for them.
Don't steal bikes. Don't steal bikes.
It's like Pulp Fiction. You just don't mess with people's stuff like that.
No, you don't.
You don't. Especially when you spend so much time working on the bike. It's
right.
It's not cool, and it
not.
really.
And they cost a lot of money, man. They cost.
They did. They did. I remember my first BMX bike was a Mongoose, was a Super Goose. I still have the frame. I had a Mongoose Super Goose, and still have it. And this was when I still did BMX, and it was a great bike. I never cracked as much as I jumped it, I never cracked the frame. The frame and the forks never cracked or bent. And there was a lot of, you know how it is with jumping. It just takes a toll. And as much as I love my Hutch Trickstar, even when I got it, me and Jason Wetzel traded for it. I traded my Haro Sport.
Yeah, I remember that ride. Yeah, that was a sweet bike.
Yeah, Haro Sport. But then when I rode his Trickstar, I was like, oh, this is it. I love this. I love the tight head tube on it. I mean, it was sharp, but for flatland, it was great. But even though he had it welded, I cracked it, and I had to go get it welded again.
Oh wow.
But I still have it. It's in the garage here.
That's cool.
RL Edge 48 spoke rims. Haro bars. I kept the Haro bars. I have I think I still have a Hutch Trickstar neck.
Well, you should set it up. Those things are worth a little bit of dough.
Yeah,
you see them come up online from time to time.
Well, it seems like the big thing to do now is to like these like crib guys that show off their pad as they show off their like vintage bike. It's like someone put together, repainted it and everything, and it's just there to hang in their house, and it's not even to ride. Like,
yeah. See that on the Instagram feed, just like these super nice bikes that don't look at it. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it. But I still got my Haro Master. So like once my Redline got stolen, I got a Haro Master, and I really liked it a lot when I got it. And then I like set up a racing frame with a racing bike, and I got the forks off the Haro and the bars off the Haro Master and put them on this Hutch frame, and I was doing some racing, and then that bike got stolen. So now all I've got is like the frame. I don't have the forks, I don't have the cranks, I don't have any of that stuff. That's all gone. Just the frame is all I got left, which is a bummer. But
you could probably still score the forks.
I think I can get all the parts that came on it originally. I can scrounge those up at some point, find those.
Yeah, I bet you probably could. The Haro Master was I wanted to get one, but I think it was a little bit out of my price point at the time. because I was delivering papers, and I got myself a Haro Sport, and it was a good bike.
The Haro Master's like was a little more of a like a flatland kind of bike. It was or street or flatland or whatever it seemed like, and then like the Sport, it had like different geometry. They always said it was like for ramp riding, and I don't know, who knows, but who cares?
Yeah, it was good.
Just get radical,
they were
man.
good bikes.
But that red line was dope.
That was a good one.
And it was sized a little bit bigger. It was I'm 6'2", so and even in high school I was like up at 200 pounds or whatever. So
Arnold was a big guy too.
Huh? Yeah, I think he was. He was a beefy dude.
He was a big guy. He was not a small guy.
Right. So yeah, it had a nice big like extra long head tube on it. I like that bike a lot.
Yeah, it was a good bike. So I remember before you moved to Guam, you started really getting into music.
Yeah, I took piano lessons for a long time. Like, when I started when I was like 7 years old, and my great grandmother, she paid for my piano lessons, and then when we met in Virginia Beach, and so like we'd moved to Virginia Beach, and in '83 or whatever, and I continued with like piano lessons, all through those years. And then, but I met somebody that like at Plaza Junior, actually, just like right about the same time when we started hanging out, maybe a little bit after, he had a drum set in his house and a guitar, and his dad had a drum set and had a guitar and a electric guitar and a guitar amp and everything. So that was the first time I'd ever heard. That had to have been like '87. It was the first time I'd ever really heard an electric guitar in person, through an amp turned on and everything. So yeah, that's where I kind of got started. And then my next door neighbor, she came over to the house one day. She just showed up with an acoustic guitar that she had pulled out of her closet. She had an extra one, and so she just handed it over and was like, "Here, I know that you're noodling with music. You might get a kick out of this guitar." So yeah, I started learning how to play a little bit on that, on the guitar. But up to that point, I just really only considered myself, since I was taking piano lessons, I considered myself like a keyboard player. Like that was my ambition, was to play keyboards in a band. Like what kind of band? I don't even, because I was like, but I was thinking like the keyboard player for Bon Jovi. I think that was like the gig I coveted. Kraftwerk or Depeche Mode wasn't on my radar. It was more like rock bands. And how nerdy is that? That is like the nerdiest thing I think I've ever admitted to anybody. But You Give Love a Bad Name was a big jam at the time.
It was, and so everything of Bon Jovi, everything they touched was huge. I mean, Wanted Dead or Alive was just,
they crushed it. They crushed it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But it's sad because it was the keyboardist for Kraftwerk. Didn't he just die this week?
That's right, Florian. I can't remember, Florian Loretab. Is that his name? Florian Loretab.
Yeah.
What's his? I'm gonna pull up my phone right now and Google him.
I know. I keep thinking I'm gonna have to get my son to be the Google master during these.
Right. I can't remember Florian's last name. Florian Schneider.
There you go.
That's the guy. That's not to be confused with Fred Schneider of the B-52s.
It was funny. It's like how many bands claim they were influenced by Kraftwerk, and when you listen to their music, it sounds nothing like Kraftwerk in any shape or form. But I think that just because Kraftwerk was so ahead of its time. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know it was Kraftwerk at the time, but we were listening to a lot of like music on the radio, and they were you listen to the R&B stations, and they were playing Africa Boombata, which was, he was sampling a lot of Kraftwerk like Tour de France and stuff like that. We hear it. And like the movie Break-In, it features samples from Kraftwerk, and so like yeah, I mean they were a big deal. I don't think anybody really realized the potential when they were putting that all together. Well, I mean I guess Africa Bambaataa did, but like he's immediately saw his the whole the whole thing. It was dope.
Yeah.
Bing, 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 bing.
You think about it, it's kind of one of those things that's when you look at when a new genre of music is evolving, and then when you start to realize, learn the origin points of where they, certain influences came from, you're like, whoa, I would have never thought that.
Right. But then there's like abstract things that you may not pick up, like, I don't know, just for an example, like, song structure, or like, some of the technical things of like, who knows, like the minimalism and the simplicity of the music, you may not necessarily have a keyboard band so much, but, there's certain techniques or certain philosophies or certain ways of looking at music that influence the way you make the music or the way that you think about the music. And so it doesn't necessarily depend on the instrumentation, to have, a certain approach. And so in that sense that maybe, Kraftwerk could be influential to bands that you might not expect, because they had, they wanted to simplify their thing. And then there's simplify their music in some way, or, and then I'm just kind of making this up. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, or that, Kraftwerk is simple music necessarily, but so yeah, there's that. And then too, there's like Kraftwerk had an image, they had the four musicians at the front with their little keyboards, and they had that color scheme of red, white, and black. And so, there's these design elements to their packaging and to their, their whole presentation, and so like that can be influential. So
yeah, it's Kraftwerk came out before Devo, am I right?
Yeah, well, Kraftwerk's been around. I saw something on YouTube. They were like playing in the 70s. I mean, they didn't look anything like they look, like what they came to be understood as. They were more like a hippie looking kind of thing with long hair and beards and stuff in those days. They played with live instruments, and they were still making like crazy, weird, experimental sounds, being these German art intellectual types or whatever. But it was cool. So yeah, they were around before. For a long time, yeah, before Devo for sure.
I think Mark Mothersbaugh, or Mothersby, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, from one of the main guys from Devo. He was in art school. I think a lot of them were, but it would make sense. I could see the correlation of totally being influenced by Kraftwerk. Yeah. So let's talk about. So you were playing piano, and when did you get your first guitar?
Well, I mean, my next door neighbor came over and gave me that electric, and so I was starting to like trying to pick out things on that. That was all I had for a couple of years, and I was trying to figure out Metallica songs with it. The And Justice for All album had just come out in 1988, and so like that was like the, and Metallica's one. Everyone wanted to learn how to play that, so that was one of the first things I learned how to play. But
you played that nonstop.
All the time. Yeah.
Nonstop. We go out to ride, and you'd be like, have the radio out, and you would just put And Justice for All on it. With just nonstop.
I learned how to play guitar. Do what?
That in excess.
Weird. In excess. Weird. Yeah. The kick. And my girlfriend had given me a copy of that record or that cassette, Kick, and so I listened to it a lot.
That's a great album.
Was it?
I think it still holds up. I mean, if you think about, it's just a good, how would you say, good song making, good pop making, I mean, I think it just had, back in those days, you just didn't really have the, appeal of, independent music. I mean,
right.
My first taste into any kind of anything independent music before was a friend gave me 2 tapes. We traded tapes. I forgot what I traded them for, but I traded for Agent Orange, and then the other one was Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah.
And then, but you couldn't get those. They wouldn't play those on the radio. You couldn't hear those on the radio, and unless you had friends that listened to that music, you couldn't get exposed to that.
Right.
Not like YouTube today.
Right. And even still, you don't necessarily find anything. I don't know. It seems difficult for me to find stuff on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe, but it's not as difficult as it was in 1988.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah. But NXS is good. I mean, we I went back and my dad liked him for some reason, and so I went ahead and bought the whole catalog for him for Christmas or his birthday one year, and so yeah. But that song too, that bank, dink, bank, 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 bank. That was you had to learn that one, right? So
yeah.
But we listened to that. I enjoyed it at the time. I haven't listened to that whole thing all the way through in forever. The slow songs kind of are down. We can
it's catchy.
So
it's catchy though. So you gotta admit it's catchy.
I know. I got it all memorized. So. But yeah, my parents eventually they got me an electric guitar, and that was when we moved to Guam. So I had to. We left Virginia Beach. Dad was in the Navy, and so the whole family packed up and moved to Guam. We ended up being there for 2 years, but I got the guitar, the electric guitar. I think I got it for my birthday, not long after we arrived.
I remember you telling me it was hard to do any kind of surfing at Guam because most of the beaches were rocky.
Yeah, it's all there's one. I remember there's only a couple of sand breaks. One of them's on a military base and you can't get to it, and then the other one is a dark sand break and it's called Talafofo Bay, and that has a weird crescent shaped break because it's in the little cove or whatever, and that was the first place I'd ever gone out in that was really real waves. I went out on a buddy's they were really common, they weren't BZs bodyboards, but they were really common at the time. They were the low end of the good stuff. Everybody had seemed to have one, and so that was the first time I'd ever went out in any kind of surf at all, and I got chewed up on a bunch of rocks. My fins, I had blisters. It was the very first day, and it was not an easy day to learn in because it was chest high, chest to head or something like that for your first day on a bodyboard. I was immensely out of shape, just flailing around like a fool. And
you could have been on Kook Slams.
Do what?
Kook of the day.
Yeah, the longshore current at Talafofo Bay dragged me all the way over to the rocks on the side, and there were people getting drops and surfing and getting good rides out of them. My buddy Steve was getting rides. He was on a season surfboard. It was probably a short board, probably about I don't know, 6 foot long, 6'6" or something, whatever. But he was the one that got the sessions together, would call us up. He would know where the swell was or what was going on. He had connections already, and he was a high school friend, and so he would always hit us up and want to go out, and he didn't want to go out by himself. So even though we sponged, me and this other guy, he took us with him because it was just better than going out to the spot potentially by yourself on a reef break. We got served hard one day. We went out on a break in Guam, and it's called a glass breakwater. It's also known as Magundus, and on the western side of the island, there's a jetty that goes out and that makes Apra Harbor. There's a man-made jetty, and alongside of it, the reef has grown up, and so it creates a break at the end of the jetty. And we went out, and it was the swell was big. I mean, I just remember You know, and the thing is you're standing up on this jetty and it's like 2 stories tall, and like you're looking down on the waves and you're thinking, oh, they're not that big. You know, it looks fun. You know, it's nice. It's feeling, it's nice, right? You know, we'll go. Well, it'll be fun, right? And then I remember like we jumped in off this rock and we started paddling out, and like the set started coming in. We didn't time it very well. And the set started coming in, and I just remember the lip. I mean, the lips were massive. They were like 3 feet thick, and it was just like peeling down the line. It was just like the water was rumbling. It was gnarly, and but we were like, screw it. We looked at each other paddling out on our crappy like Ocean Pacific boards or whatever they were. I don't know. I can't remember what they were, but they weren't BZs. I do remember that. So like we paddled out. And like just got drilled. We had tried to duck 1 wave and like, oh, it sucked. And then duck 2 waves and then duck 3 waves. And these things were like 6 foot, 6 foot. I could stand up in them. And the lips were like massive. And it's just like, oh my God, gnarly. If I'm going on and this is dumb, just.
No, that's good. It's good. I think.
But like we got hammered. And then, after about the 4th or 5th wave, my buddy had already given up, but I looked back up on the jetty and there's a guy standing up there, a surfer that we respected. He was like, I couldn't hear him, but he was pointing to just keep going, to go out. He's just like, go, and because he's like, I'm that close to making it out. And then I knew it was too gnarly for me to even try to like surf any of these waves, but if I could make it out, I could like go around and like get back in, like, and climb, where it was safe, But after about like 4 or 5 waves trying to duck them, I was just like, out of breath, panting, dying, and then I just got swallowed up. I went over the falls, and I was underwater forever. That was like the first time I thought I was going to die. I mean, I was like, I literally thought, this is what it's like to die. I was like, whitewater. And so like after being underwater for like a half hour, I popped back up. And there was another wave coming right in it, so I just turned around and I just paddled in as hard as I could. The whitewater was big. I mean, it was like the whitewater was like head high. So yeah, I was way in over my head on that day, literally like in over my head, and I got served. So that's my surfing. That's my near-death surfing story.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen very often.
Surfing is one of those things where I think in Virginia Beach, you take it for granted that it's pretty forgiving until hurricanes come.
Uh-huh.
And even then, for the most part, they can be forgiving. I know that, I've had my times where if I don't have the right board, then you're gonna get rocked. And I remember, can't remember the hurricane, but it was a really good swell. But it was dumping really fast and it was closing out. So like if you dropped in on something, you were getting crunched.
Right,
you were
right.
getting pounded. And luckily, I've surfed reef and I don't like it. I surfed in Hawaii and Maui, a reef break, and I think it was somewhere just near Hookapa.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I was aware what not to do.
Uh-huh.
But one wave though just forced me, I was trying to turn the board around. I just, you're thinking, okay, I got to get the board around so I can get back on.
Right.
And I'm trying not to touch, but the waves sucked out the water and it suddenly got shallower.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Top of my right foot scraped as I'm trying to kick up to get on the board, because now I got to get on this board, otherwise I'm going to be standing on the reef.
Right.
No matter what way this board is facing.
Right.
And it was you're taking someone who's used to East Coast surfing and then suddenly throwing them into West Coast surfing, and it didn't scrape bad. I remember once I got out, I looked at my foot, because I split open my foot before, and I was like, okay, this isn't bad. I don't think I'm going to attract any, like, it's just surf the scrape.
Right.
I should be fine. And I don't plan to stay out here too much longer because I'd already ridden enough. But just that evening, even though I cleaned the cut and everything, pardon me, by that evening, my foot was numb.
Oh my gosh.
Like my toes were numb. And I went home, and I mean, not home, but we went to the hotel. We stopped by the grocery store, picked up some peroxide, and I cleaned it out. But it does its stuff, and that it's one of those weird things. I was like walking, it's like I don't feel my damn foot. Yeah, I'm walking and I can't feel it.
Well,
so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in Guam, there was like there was a little bit of a variety of stuff, but yeah, it was all like pretty much like reef breaks, and you just had to deal with it. Like, so we were like bodyboarding, and of course the bottoms of our knuckles just got all chewed up because like you duck and like you're in like a foot or 2 foot of water, and you just like chew your knuckles up all the time. My feet got cut that when I almost died surfing. I mean, at Glass Breakwater or Magundus or whatever. I mean, I like cut my feet on the rocks really badly. I had like, just when I popped back up that one, I rode that whitewater in, and I popped back up next to a rock. I just, like a cat, just stuck my claws like right into this volcanic rock and just heaved the adrenaline. I just pushed myself back up. But I was on like a little island. I had to jump over to another rock that, to get me back up on the jetty again. So like all I was wearing was like socks. These flippers and socks, right? So I just like jumped from one, 6 feet to the next rock over, and it cut my foot so bad I had to go to the hospital, and like I bled. I mean, I bled all the way up the side of the thing. It was pretty bad. They had to wrap my foot up and everything. They didn't put stitches in it, but like, yeah, it was just like really bad. But yeah, so the reef will chew you up. But the one thing that was nice about Guam was a popular spot called Boat Basin, and that was a channel. That was a channel break, so like it broke on both sides of the channel, like where the boat inlet was, and so like you could just like ride out to the channel and then come back in, and you just like do a loop like that all day long. So you didn't have to necessarily paddle out. That's the thing about the sand break, and like anytime out in Virginia Beach, if it gets big, you have to duck 3 or 4 waves before you can really get out there and do anything. But there's some spots in Guam where you don't even have to worry about that. You just go outside, go around, and then you're back out there in the lineup again. So that was a lot of fun. That's so cool. It was one or the other. It's like, and then too there was like plenty of good learning days, like just good knee to chest surf that was like fun. It had power to it, had shape. It it doesn't mush over so bad, so it has like a little bit of like form to it, so you can drop in on it. Well, still you had to pick out like the closeouts and sometimes they peel really nicely, but many times they don't. So we're just still learning here.
Yeah. Surfing's a blast. There's something about it that I have to say that it's one of those few sports that as much as I like BMX and freestyling, for me, I love the camaraderie of riding and trying to, your friends are cheering you on and goading you on to do better, and everybody has their own tricks they're trying to master. But with surfing, it's completely different. It's not like that at all. And I don't know. I mean, it's like some people can't surf or prefer to surf with friends, and then some people prefer to surf alone. And
I like it. I like it with friends. I don't like to go out by myself necessarily, but I know what you mean. Surfing is just way, way harder. I mean, it is like, what was the joke? It's like, you ride a bike. Well, my grandmother can ride a bike. It's like, so getting up on a surfboard, figuring out how the waves work, figuring out like how to get on them, figuring out, to be able to even get to catch a wave, to body surf a wave is tough. Is figuring that out can be tough, and then let alone try to putting a board into it and then trying to stand up on it. I mean, come on. So yeah, there's all that. So surfing is not something for just any kind of casual. It's it's a deal. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's an undertaking. And so, yeah.
I feel in a lot of ways that music is kind of the same way. It's like, you know, you can sit there and give somebody an instrument, and they might be able to tool around with it a little bit, but you know, there's so much to it. And when you were in Guam, did you play and you got your electric guitar, did you play a lot?
All the time. I mean, I was like, there was, you know, it was a perfect storm of like, you know, this like emotional teenage thing of like trying to figure out who you were and what you wanted to do, you know, the stress of the day. And so like, yeah, it was just as soon as I got home from school, well, hell, I mean, even in school, I mean, I took my guitar amp to band class, you know, I played guitar in the band. So like, I mean, I literally would carry like a Fender amp in my arms through the parking lot to the band room, you know, back and forth every day because I wanted it for class and then I wanted it at home when I was at practice. But yeah, I mean, I was constantly noodling on that damn guitar all the time, all through those 2 years of high school for sure, and you know, and definitely into college as well. Constantly annoying my parents.
Yeah, I remember when you came back from Guam, and I remember you went over your house and I saw your guitar and your amp and everything, and remember you just started playing. And I was like, wow, he has definitely gotten to a next level. I mean, I remember you noodling around in your guitar before, but you could tell that the time you spent on your guitar, you had really, it was a big growth.
Well, thanks. I didn't really take any lessons, but I just played with other people that were good and just, you know, just tried to copy, you know, the sounds that I was hearing mostly from Metallica, you know, just copy their sounds as closely as possible. And yeah, that was really all there was to it. But there was an immense amount of time spent, you know, working on that, and most of it was because I was just, you know, depressed and had no other place to go.
Yeah, you're on an island. What do? You know,
right?
Your first thing on surfing, you nearly die and you get pounded. I imagine. I think I could be wrong, but I think you remember you saying there's really no place to ride.
Like ride BMX bikes? No.
Yeah.
I mean, no, there was no BMX. I mean, BMX had happened on Guam for evidently. I found a bike shop. Then in the mall, they had like one complete BMX bike to sell, and it was a Schwinn Yo. Do you remember those? Those like ghastly.
Yes. Oh my gosh! Yeah,
Schwinn had
the ugliest bike.
Yeah, it was, and I of course, you know, I asked my mom, you know, because my Haro parts had gotten stolen, so like I asked my parents to get that for me for Christmas or whatever, and they did, or my birthday, and they got that for me for my 18th birthday. That thing was ghastly. So yeah, but BMX didn't exist. I was the only person riding around on that island, you know, riding a BMX bike, you know, at all. They had a skate park on base. And it was just like a wooden. They had a wooden half, like a wooden half pipe, and then they had like a bunch of like they had a mini ramp, I think, and then they had like a couple like jump ramps and launch ramps and stuff like that. And I was the only BMXer there, and you know, so I got heckled. I got heckled at the park for being the only biker. Yeah, so like yeah, definitely. I mean, music was like a bigger deal. And the cool thing about Guam too is it's like there were like. They you know they took it serious. I mean, they took playing serious. I mean, they had like a big battle of the bands there, and like you know, there was like they had a big sign band, you know, there was like they were called Precious and Metal, and it was like this woman, you know, gimmicky metal band, you know, and they came and played and headlined at the Battle of the Bands. But there were bands that were like literally like straight up doing Testament covers, Metallica, Van Halen. I mean, it was like, and it's like they've got the guitar solos memorized. You know, the solo for like, you know, that was a thing. You know, if you could play the Four Horsemen and play the guitar solo, you were really good. You were the deal. So yeah, so there was a lot of cool like. There was cool in that respect that like you could actually play and like people respected it, and they made fun of me like at the end of high school, played a band thing, and they started calling me Steve Vai. Just like, what's up, Steve Vai? I liked it, but it was pretty funny. But so like in Guam, you could like, and there was like 10 or 15 like good players, like high school age, college age, like kids that could shred, that could really play, kids, a couple kids that could play drums. I mean, so yeah, I mean Guam was fun. I had a good experience. I had a good experience with this guy. We started a band with Joey Rojas, and we did thrash covers. We did Exodus. We did no, I'm sorry, forgive me. We didn't do Exodus. We were named for an Exodus song, but we did a cover of Sepultura. We did a couple Sepultura songs, and we did and then we worked up a cover of Nuclear Assault. Do you remember that? Screaming at the top of our lungs.
Oh yeah, that wasn't the commercial.
Yeah, it was that kind of.
I remember that was like a commercial. It was a I think it was like a Geico commercial.
It very well may have been.
Hilarious. Like one of the few times that was like, I think we were both making fun of that. Like it was like, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing when you get put in circumstances where you realize that things that you're in a new environment, and then suddenly it's like, okay, this is what's cool. Let me do this. And do you think you would have embraced the guitar as much if you'd have stayed in Virginia Beach?
That's a tough question. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? I mean, probably. It's like it would have come out. It probably would have come out differently. It would have been a different thing altogether. I mean, I don't know like what kind of opportunities I might have had in Virginia Beach or. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed playing. I probably, music was a thing. It was like, it was going to do what it was going to do regardless of where I lived, but it would probably like look different. But then again, the seeds had been, the Virginia Beach thing had, really the seeds had been sown. And like what I learned in Virginia Beach from 1983 to 1989 was like, that was already like in my being, that's already like, the Cobainite had frozen at that point, and I was kind of like, I was kind of going to be what I was going to be. And, the Guam maybe made it tougher, in some ways because I was pulled out of a system in Virginia Beach and pulled out of like a, out of a thing, and then to relocate for 2 years in Guam and then come back to Virginia Beach again after that and try to reintegrate into something that was after high school. So, and before college had started. So like there was, that was just a complete Wild West. And so like, just kind of lost my footing all over again and had no band, trying to like audition for these cover bands that played in Norfolk, and like I did a couple of those and they didn't work out. I was a weird person at that time, and then I got into church music, which was like, oh boy, that was a bad move. So and then I started going to church and I was in church for like I don't know 5 or so years, and that was like a black hole of no.
Yeah, you went to school in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, I ended up getting a degree in religion and philosophy, and I minored in music, but I started there as a music education major. This time I was, a lot of people were saying like, what are you going to do? You need a plan B. Nobody makes it in music. And then, 1992, there wasn't, we were all like in Virginia Beach, we were just kind of in the periphery of like what was going on in the country with music and music wise. And so like nobody really believed that like a person could have a career, in rock music or really, it just seemed so far away and so far off. So, I took bad advice, that like I needed to, well, I don't know. I mean, I needed an education, and my college education nowadays is like more important to me than it was back then. It's really weird, but like I really value my education, but at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I did what I did, and that's just kind of how it came out. But like, but yeah, I mean, so like all the way up to '96. I mean, I was like in school and just kind of piddling with music, but not really like. And that's funny because like I've got a music minor, and I'm like all this classwork and stuff, but like it wasn't a very productive. Maybe it was. I don't. Who knows? I mean, I haven't really thought about it that much, but I was just trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
And something else.
No, I totally get it.
It was a weird time. It was really hard, just really hard, like dealing with all the religious stuff, trying to figure out where I fit in with the world, trying to understand like what my career was. They're like, and I'm crazy, I'm not like a normal person. I, had a lot of energy. I was a super obnoxious kid and just like over the top all the time, just losing my mind. I mean, it's like, I don't know, just imagine somebody like Flea, from the Red Hot Chili Peppers trying to like go to college and like, I had that kind of energy. I just didn't know what that was, that rock guy or band guy, crazy thing, or, you see it with BMX people too. I mean, well, and skateboard people and, just like they're kind of nuts.
I think it's
Sorry, I had a little bit to drink here, and so like I'm like, oh, just blabbering.
No, it's great. I think you're right, because I mean, I think it's like, when we look at these sports like BMX and everything, while they're individual sports, they're not team. It's not football. It's not soccer.
Right.
You got friends, but ultimately it's you and the bike, or in surfing it's you and surfing and the board and the wave, and it's not. You're not there to play teamwork.
Right.
And I had no interest in doing team sports when in high school or even in junior high. I was like, your wrestling team, screw that. Or baseball, nah.
Right.
No, thank you.
In Guam it was volleyball. That was like when I first started there, they were like doing volleyball, and I tried out for the volleyball team and like played a little bit and took an interest, but then there was like this weird beef with this other white dude that was there, and like he was just always like, it just was weird, man. And it was just like this puffed up jock thing, and it just didn't appeal to me. I was just like, dude, I don't want to compete with you. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to prove myself in this jock way. It just was like bogus. And so like I ended up hanging out with all the nerds and gay kids, evidently. So they're like, yeah, it's like, that's where I, at that school at least. But yeah. So the whole jock and team sports deal was just like not really my bag.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, and the people that we rode with, it was pretty much the same thing. That I think that's where we all had this commonality, is that we were all not, how would you say, we were individuals,
Totally.
And I think at life's when jamming out life sports in Kempsville, in the parking lot. But everybody had their own uniqueness. Jason, had it, and Woodstock had his own uniqueness as well, and so did a lot of the other riders.
Right.
That was a thing, and it was like, in kind of ways, I wish I was a little bit more. I think for where we lived in Virginia Beach, it was a little bit harder to be an individual, or to really express yourself than it is now. I see kids are able to express themselves a lot easier.
Well, looking back
the
on
way
it,
they want to wear, what the clothes they want to wear.
I mean, looking back on it, I mean, Virginia Beach was not. It was a conservative. Virginia Beach was a conservative place. I mean, it's like a military town. There's a lot of military people, and just like people that just want to like do, kind of like what's laid out for them, and it's like, and they're happy to do that, and like, they don't want no alarms and no surprises, and I don't, mean that like in a, I mean, in the most charitable way, it's just like, people just kind of wanted to live their lives and have stability, and like, but that did mean, to an extent, just kind of tamping down on some of the other stuff that was, that might have been going on. Although, on the other hand, like, there is like crazy drugs and like a weird darkness to like military stuff and like alcoholism and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's like a weird complex stew, but yeah, overall, it was like, it was a conservative place. It was like hard to, exist in that kind of environment, and like, this little bit of Disney kind of thing going on with the boardwalk and the police and, shutting your session down and the bust and all that. So I don't know, but, yeah, definitely we were all like a bunch of weirdos, BMX weirdos. Who was the one that had the Liberty spikes? I can't remember. He had like Butch was his name. What he like?
He cut down my tree.
What?
He cut down my tree.
Does he still ride? Do you keep in touch with him?
No. I mean, that's like,
he was really good.
He didn't remember me. That's all good. But yeah.
He was really good. But that's funny. Was. He's cutting down trees now,
Yeah. Yeah, he seems pretty successful at it.
Well, probably he makes more money than I do.
He makes more money than probably all of us. And he was like, he had a whole crew out there, man. And, he was really cool. Cut me a nice deal. He doesn't keep in touch with any of the, I was like, yeah, you keep in touch with any of, no. He's like, he says, yeah, that was I think he said he still had his bike. But, it was, that chapter had closed pretty much for him.
Weird. I mean, it's like, so like all this like dark stuff was associated with his BMX days. I mean, was he drinking and drugging and stuff? Like, do you remember? Like, there was some of that. That was another thing. It's like, I wasn't really interested in drinking and drugs. Drinking scared the hell out of me. Like drugs, the idea of like pot that. We fully bought, part of that conservative thing, we bought fully into that. At least I did. Don't do drugs. Yes. I mean, we didn't drink. We didn't do drugs. We rode our bikes until like 11 o'clock at night and then went home, We're like hanging out in the parking lot of Kmart until 11, practicing our tricks.
Cops
and then
come by. What are you kids doing out here? We're riding. They couldn't believe that we were driving. But then we'd do tricks and they'd sit there and watch for a little bit. They said, all right, you guys got to go. I come back around. I want you gone. Just don't be here when I come back around.
Right. That happened so many times.
I know. What's funny is I forgot all about that. And then I don't know if you remember Glenn. And we're not going to say his last name, but, Filipino Glenn. Uh-huh. And
the skater or the... Because there's a few... okay. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And,
there's a skater Glenn too that like was really good skater in Chimney Hill and like in Virginia Beach and like, but no, different Glenn.
Yeah, not Glenn Gutierrez.
I was thinking of Glenn Moncall, who's really good, who lives in Vegas.
Yeah, there's a lot of good skaters. But he was telling me, I was like, I completely forgot about it. I was like, he was hanging out at my house overnight. We were just riding. And like we always do. And this cop decided that he was going to escort us home.
Okay.
And I remember he's like, Doug, I got so much trouble.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it was like, I remember, it was, I mean, it was cool. And, the parents were really nice. And, I still keep in touch with the whole family, but I remember that he goes, I remember that time. It was like, my mom was so mad.
Oh man.
Because cops came and it was like, maybe it was like 12:30 at night and knocking on the doors and they're sleeping. Your son's been out riding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Your son's been out riding. But, there's so many things that could have been worse,
Right.
Think about it. Think about all the things that, I think we all had friends that, did turn to drugs and we're definitely deeper into that scene. And I think just seeing what was happening to them really, I think watching them, there were quite a few that just took a nosedive.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, at that age, at that age, like you just don't have the wherewithal and to handle like a drug, 19 years old or whatever, and you're gonna get addicted to opioids, or like you're gonna start, I don't know, freebasing. I mean, it's real, people, these kids do it, 19 years old and freebasing cocaine, I guess, that stuff was going around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like, it was too gnarly, that scene was heavy. So yeah, I wasn't there, man.
So back to your music. Let's talk about. So when did your band Hurt? How did you come up with the name Hurts to Laugh, and how did it all evolve?
Well, I moved to Nashville in '99 after I moved to 90. I moved here to Nashville in '99 with some college buddies, and I was attempting to start a band for real in Nashville with one of my friends, and we had a name for the band. It was called Earshot at first, and but then there was like another band already that was called Earshot, and they actually were on the Queen of the Damned movie on the soundtrack for that. So we had to change the name, and then we were like trying to, we had to change the name, and I was driving to work, my day job, and I was just thinking, the idea was kind of like having this band that was like, super hard and like da 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 da, and then between songs to be like, hey guys, yeah, it was like, it's great to be here, yeah, it was like kind of funny or just fun, this juxtaposition of levity and seriousness, and so like, Hurts to Laugh was like what I come up with, and so like we just rolled with that, and then like, yeah, I just never bothered to like change the name or give up the name over the years. I just like kind of was what it was and what I was associated with since 1999 or 2000 or whatever. So it's been a while.
And that's about the time I came up with Liquidmethod. So, which is, about right. Is these, how would you say, these alter ego names, if you will?
Yeah. So that was, I was 27 at that time. So time's a ticking here on my watch. So yeah, it Hurts to Laugh. It was a thing, 2001 kind of. We didn't really like play in earnest until, because we went through some lineup changes. We recorded a demo in 2000 and we recorded a set of demos 2002. We recorded in 2004. We did our first music video in 2006. I was the only one in the music video. It was for a song called I Tried.
That was a great video.
Thanks. Really, so I played all the parts. I played all the characters in this day in the life story of the lead singer, which was, that was pretty cool. So we first did that in 2006. I've done a number of music videos with the same director, Elvis, who's been a creative director here in Nashville, and he's like he's directed a feature film. He's working on another feature film. So like, yeah, I've been fortunate, and I actually met him through skateboarding, if you can believe that. So like, we just would go to the local skate park, and there was a mini bowl that they had there. We would skate that all the time, every day I was there, and every Thursday and Tuesday and Thursdays, this crew of cats would get together and we would all hang out, and he was one of them, and he expressed an interest in the band, and and doing a music video. So yeah, we've been kind of doing cool creative things for a while now. Just recently we did our music video for our most recent single, which is Mr. 1980 More. It's kind of this like, this send up of dictators and demagogues and strongmen. And so, the whole record is just kind of like this, the idea is just this, the idea of the dystopian America, just, reflecting kind of like what's going on in the U.S. right now with Trump and all that, kind of written from that Trump's perspective almost, the despot's perspective. So a whole record of songs that are coming out. And so, yeah.
I like that persona. Now, I could totally relate to the name 1980 More of the character, and you can see some context of the 80s and the Reagan era.
Right.
For sure. I definitely saw that. And, and especially when watching your videos, as far as now with the, Hertz Laugh, you've played different instruments in the band.
Right. Well, I've actually recorded some stuff. I played all the instruments, and so yeah. But mainly it's been guitar, and that actually might stop happening. We've got another guitar player in the band. So we've been working as a 4-piece, and I front with guitar, but I might ask somebody else to join in, and it'll go like AC/DC style with me as the lead singer, and then 2 guitars, and so like a 5-piece band. It could get to there. I don't know. We'll see if a new guy works out or not. But yeah, I've played all the instruments. Definitely like have the ideas for all the instruments for all the Hurts to Laugh songs too.
So Hurts to Laugh pretty much is your baby.
But yeah, it pretty much is. I mean, the drums are like probably the place where like if you have like a creative thing, it's like, because I'm not so skilled at playing drums. I have an idea about drums. I can play drums a little bit. I've played drums in other bands, but like, yeah, I'm not a great drummer. So if somebody has a better idea about playing drums, and we have a drummer, his actual name is Nate Moran. He's really good, and he's super solid, and a clean, upstanding young man. And his really good ideas about drums and what drums are supposed to be, and he goes by the stage name of Jimmy Joplin, but like I go by the stage name of Cliff Cobain.
So and I take that's Cliff Burton and then Kurt Cobain.
That's right. Yeah, and then the other guy that was playing with me at the time, he was Kurt Burton.
Kurt Burton. Now, I remember you were doing you guys started touring very early on, because I remember you guys opened up for Agent Orange when they came. And
actually, we opened for Agent Orange, and I was in a band called Regatta 69. It was actually a ska band based out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I was playing guitar for that band. And so that was immediately before moving to Nashville, and that was March of 1999 when we did that. And we did like 5 or 6 dates with opening for Agent Orange in the East. That included Virginia Beach, it included Charleston, South Carolina, it included I don't even remember. It's like, yeah, I know, but we did like 4 or 5 shows with them. So that's probably like the coolest thing the biggest thing I've done is like play with open for Agent Orange.
What was it like with playing with that? I mean, because basically that band is Mike Palm and then whoever.
Right.
Rotating shift of band members from the original.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, everybody was super capable at the time. He was playing with a guy named Dusty. I can't remember Dusty's last name, but he would play drums for Dick Dail's band, and he was a really good drummer. And it was really fun to sit, to be on the side of the stage and watch Dustin. I think it's Dusty, and he would play. But Mike Palm was awesome. He was a super nice guy. I mean, there really wasn't anything to it other than just like, hey, we're not friends necessarily. It wasn't like a big bro down. They brought another band that was like, from another label, and so they were kind of broing down with this other band called Los Infernos, and so they just had their like own little clique, and we're kind of this East Coast thing going on, and we're just like different worlds colliding, but
cool.
yeah, but it was cool, and like, but they were fun to watch, and they were nice enough, but
yeah, I have to say Cole really likes, my son, he likes Agent Orange, and we took him to Agent Orange concert, and Mark Palm, setting up his own stuff and whatnot. We got to watch them, up close, kind of, seeing, it's not like some of the other concerts where you don't really get to see anybody set up except for like the road crew, or they just open up the curtain and boom, they're playing. And I think it was really cool for Cole to see, just, working musician and he was super nice at the end because afterwards he's just sitting there, hanging out on the stage and talking to fans. And I got my son up there. He signed his T-shirt and took a photo. I was like, God couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
And you worry about that as a father, because I've taken him to meet Stuart Copeland. And
he's kind of a prickly dude from what I gather.
I was worried. No, he couldn't have been nicer.
Oh, well, that's cool.
He couldn't have been nicer. And I was worried about that because, everybody, how would you say, in all fairness, you never know what's going on with that day and everything. You got to remember they're putting on a show and they're coming to a different town. You don't know what stresses they're dealing with.
Right.
And I really wanted him to have the opportunity to meet his hero, because he idolizes Stuart Copeland and the Police.
Right.
But it was relief, and it was relief for Mike Palm to be as gracious and nice as he was, and he made a kid's day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
that's the way to
but
do
you
it.
worry about those. I've seen that with sports figures where they're total jerks to kids.
Right. That's too bad.
Yeah, total jerks. So that's cool that you had a great experience with Agent Orange.
Well, what's funny is that Agent Orange came to Nashville a few years later, and I went and saw him, and and I chatted with him after the show, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember." He was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. It was a fun little jaunt, So yeah, he was cool, and he had a completely different lineup by then. It was a different drummer and different bass player, so it's just if you don't have a hit record, or if you don't have a lot going on, it's just you just you want to be playing and stuff, but it's just over the course of time, unless you're doing something really big, it's hard to keep people, because Dusty, Dick Dail calls him back up and wants him to go back out on the road or whatever, and it's just I'll go hang back. He's gonna go hang out with Dick Dail, which is a little bit bigger maybe than Agent Orange was or whatever. Or then the bass player gets tired of this gig and is doesn't want to do it anymore, and so that's how you end up with it. It's the same kind of story with that dude with our friend Tom Pappas. He played in Super Drag, and he was he's a good friend of ours.
I love Super Drag.
Yeah. And Tom comes over to the house all the time, and we go and have dinner, and he's in the circle of friends. John Davis, the singer of Super Drag, is a good buddy of mine. We first met at the skate park, and we hang out a good bit of time. We've been on the road a couple times together. Well, not on the road. We've played some shows together, so we've done some cool stuff. But Tom's kind of in the same thing. He's got his own band going on, but it kind of rotates with this cast, just like Mike Palm does. It's just they're just kind of playing to be playing, just to kind of keep working and keep doing stuff. But other people have other opportunities, and just kind of, so keeping a band together is not always, feasible. So anyway.
Yeah, I imagine you've probably experienced that a lot, as people.
Yeah.
Life priority changes. They get married, they have kids and whatnot, and then as running a band, you've got to deal with those changes. And I imagine that probably can put, depending on whether you're in the middle of a tour or a recording, that can put some real stress.
Totally. Yeah, the whole thing about Metallica, lasting for since 1982, fairly well intact, that's rare, that just doesn't happen, it's just so many conflicts within, the band, the personality differences, different interests, different musical interests, creative differences, all that kind of stuff kind of comes into play. It's just keeping a crew of people married in a close work relationship like that. I've super intimate, dumb, stupidly intimate relationship, that's a tough, tall order. It's I have only done a portion, I scratched the surface of that work that those guys have gone through in my life, and and already it's good gravy, to be stuck on the bus, or to have to do all these press engagements beforehand. It's just there's a lot to consider, and a lot of opportunities for tension in that kind of environment. It's just I can't. It's amazing. It's amazing that Metallica didn't break up like sooner. It's amazing that any bands can stay together. I mean, I think like Guns N' Roses is like that's like what you can, that kind of normal actually, in many respects. It was like if you're gonna try to work at that scale, that intensity for that long, it's just like something's gonna blow up. It just you can't.
And I think you just had too many egos in that one.
Right. But my point is that like it's probably like a normal person like you and me, like in that situation, it's like, no, I just don't want to do this anymore. And then that gets called ego. It's like I don't want to do it like this right now. It's just like this is too much to deal with. It's like I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah. So what you've been playing and writing a lot of these songs. What are when you come up with a song, what are some of the things that you go through? I mean, everybody has their own process. Do you write the lyrics first? Do you get a rhythm first, or do you just things fall out and just come into place?
All of the above. It all happens in different ways. I don't know what to expect, and I mean, there's basically maybe a bit of a discipline of like a daily discipline of trying to like have something happen, to make something happen, to play guitar, to I don't know, maybe not meditating on it, but like just kind of lay around and think about music and think about musical ideas, read books, documentaries and stuff like that. Just over the course, driving in the car is a big deal, on the way to work, on the way back from work, on a trip, you get ideas for music and things like that. And then you can sit down and kind of flesh them out, figure out like what, if it's a lyrical idea that's particularly attractive or a musical idea, it can start out like in an abstract way. I was like, oh, I really think we need a song with like a kind of this kind of bass line, or I really, or see a particular band and you're like, oh, we need a drum part like that in one of our songs. Just any kind of little spark of an idea, can turn into a song. The thing is you just have to like, just see it through and like, turn off the internal editor and just kind of let some things happen. And you don't know what you got until you're, maybe a quarter of the way through it. And then you're like, this is worth continuing and, well, seeing through. And yeah, but a lot of times it does happen, just kind of quickly. I don't know, the good stuff seems to.
Yeah, it's funny because, you hear about some songwriters and they've got this hit song, and when you hear, like, for example, with Chris Cornell and Black Hole Sun, he said, yeah, that song came together in 15 minutes. People don't realize it takes a lifetime to get to, and a lifetime of experience to get to that place of, knowing what fits. I mean, it's like painting. You it just doesn't happen. And it's not like a water faucet. You just can't keep it on.
Right. I don't know like how like really like people, really successful people have, manage it, like, because like part of like what I've come to understand about creative professionals is that you're a creative professional. You're expected to work, and be creative on command, and it's like, and so like, yeah, there is an element of like discipline that goes along with it. You have to work at it. But I think and what you say is true, that like it takes time to get to a place where you have the skills develop and the judgment to be able to make a piece of art. So, but, I guess the special stuff does just kind of like, the special stuff does happen. Sometimes you do get the lightning in a bottle moments, or like those kinds of things happen. I don't know. I don't fully understand it. I mean, the only thing I do understand is that you have to keep after it. You have to nurture it. You have to continue to work. And then like like they say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So yeah, you just keep writing, keep recording, and keep trying. and who knows what will happen.
I think what's interesting now, and I think that you and I, we live in this unique time where the radio and the record execs aren't in control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for music, I mean, you think about it, it's like they're not in control anymore.
Right.
They're not, and I think it's taken me a while to realize, with the galleries and everything, and these contests and competitions, and you apply for, at least for when I apply for to get in an event and I don't get in, there aren't, in reality, there isn't a lot of those. It's not like I'm a touring artist like with you. You can go and I'm going to go book these shows and go up and play.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, I don't have to rely on a gallery to get my work in front of millions of people.
Right.
There is still this kind of finding the right. You still have to have like a lightning in the bottle to some degree, because you there's so much out there that you got to try and stick out, and to find your niche, to find your groove, to find what yourself even. I mean, it's not just being an artist. It's being comfortable in your skin. And I think the most successful people finally get to that point where they're comfortable in the skin, and those that are successful but aren't comfortable in the skin, they burn out.
Right.
They really burn out.
Yeah, I just don't know, like, if the only thing I can do really, where I've come down on this is like all I can do is like all I can do. I mean, it's like it's out of my hands. Like, the thing is like with this conversation and like many times trying to talk to people about like the nature of music or the music business or whatever, and even to a degree, and maybe there's some parallels in the art world, like we just kind of take for granted that you get record deals, that like people make it in the music business because we hear it on the radio. I mean, we turn on media and there's music all the time. I mean, so like there's music everywhere. It's coming at us from the radio in the car, behind the computer screen. It's like people are doing it. So why aren't you doing it? Why aren't I doing it? But what they don't understand is that like what most people don't understand, there's just like a billion, people, 5 billion people, that are trying to do it, trying to get there. And it's really only us, the people that you hear in media, that you take for granted as like, music, and that's what music is a super fine select fraction of folks that have like gotten some sort of reputation or some sort of notoriety. They're actually the exception. They're not the rule. But you would think that like because they're everywhere and ubiquitous and like in your face all the time, that they're actually the rule. But no, fame is not the rule. Fame and fortune or maybe even making a living is not the rule, but the exception. It's a lucky bunch that gets the invitation to do this kind of work. And the race is not always to the swift. That's kind of where I'm falling out on this whole deal. The only thing you can do is like, just like, what's good for your heart, your soul, and like, make the statement that you want to make and do what you want to do. I think that's the only way that I'm personally going to be able to satisfy myself, make music that I enjoy and that I think is important to me. And, and what Neil Young, I've heard Neil Young say or be quoted as saying that like, all you can do is just like make what you like and then hope that other people like it, So, yeah, and, defining success at that point becomes kind of more of a personal journey, and more of a personal thing. And you have to have a clear idea. In my view, you have to have a clear in my view, you have to have a clear idea of like what you want to achieve and like what kind of person you want to be and like what kind of art you want to do. And then the closer you get to those things, then the more successful you can consider yourself. But money is nice.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting though. I think I look at it this way, and you know, I feel like for musicians now, I think comparative, like we looked at the 90s or even the 80s, is that the ability to find a niche, a following, is so much greater now than it's ever been. I mean, how could you not? You couldn't reach people the way you do now in the 90s or the 80s. You just couldn't do it.
That's true. The caveat, the other thing is, as like, there's just so many people out there, so much that are actually getting out there. You don't, from a consumer perspective, you don't know like what's good or like what's what. It's like there's no way to. It's like the Smithsonian. You can't see it all. There's just no way for you to like find it. That's the flip side of it. It's like, so on one hand, it's like, you know, these executives served as gatekeepers, but they were, you know, they kind of helped. They were mavens, you know. They just kind of like help people, you know, get stuff, you know. I don't know if we have that so much anymore. I mean, we have influencers, you know, but like, I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know. But I seem to get music from, you know, music inspiration or like new music from like skate videos and from like, you know, I don't know, like Friends and other bands, or I don't know who knows. I don't get new music. I live under a rock, but
yeah, you may.
But I know, but I feel you. I'm sorry.
You may feel like you
look at
this.
This is where
yeah. But you think about it though, it's kind of like where else are you gonna get so much influence? I think the thing that I look back at, you know, and it used to really bug me because when you see the young kids, it's like, oh my gosh, if I could just, how would you say, the amount of stuff that they get access to. I couldn't find the artist that you know, the only art that I liked as a kid was comic books. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't really find the work. Right. Or I didn't have the appreciation. I didn't have the knowledge. And all of that, you know, really, I think these kids now get to see all the works of John Singer Sargent and all these other contemporary artists that I never had access to.
Right.
And you wonder, it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I think these kids have information overload. And I think, you know, from bands, I mean, any kind of art, I think in some ways it's a little bit of information overload, and they end up copying, you know, too much of one thing. They find somebody, they obsess over it. But then, I mean, I guess kids, we all do that and some ways. Right. But it just seems like they have so much to offer. It's like, I don't want to get myself on a rant about college, because it just in this day and age, it just seems so unnecessary for a lot of trades. Not every trade, but a lot of trades. Artist, musician, maybe you don't need college. Maybe you need business and, you know, business and marketing, sure. But yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, I think that for a lot of us, you know, the education that we got doesn't serve us in the period that we're in now, and in a lot of ways, not every way, but in a lot of ways.
So I guess, you know, maybe what I hear you saying is like, it's just like the culture needs some sort of, the culture maybe needs some guidance, you know, maybe there's like, or maybe the people within the culture needs some sort of guidance. I don't know, like, I mean, how are we going to make decisions about like what's worth viewing, or like what's worth seeing, or I don't know. parsing all this glut of information and content. It's like, how are you going to make an idea about the world from just like all this stuff? It's going to be individuals and like people, making decisions together in their communities, about like what's like, oh yeah, I like this style and I want to do this, and I want to emulate this artist, or like I want to even watch that artist. I don't know. I mean, it happens. And the only real kind of like parallel I can think of is like, I'm thinking about skateboarding, and like there's different crews. There was actually like a thing on the Thrasher website about like the different kinds of like skaters that there are, like, there's skaters like different styles, like crusty skaters, crusters, that listen to like, death metal and like hop trains and like, listen to, and then there's other like kinds of skaters that like skate transition and they wear hats and they're fans of Jeff Grosso and P-Stone, and then other tech dudes that like Spanky, Kevin Spanky Long, and like, I don't know, like there's different styles of skaters, and so they have different kinds of music that they like. Are you Hesh? Are you Fresh? So there already is like a stratification. This kind of, people are finding their ways, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know like how people, come to understand who they are. I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure it out too, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, when we were talking earlier, and I think we talked about this before we started recording, but we were talking about the different magazines. Those were like our YouTube, like BMX Plus and Freestylin' and Thrasher and what was the other one? Trans World.
Mm-hmm.
Those were our not MTV, but those were our YouTube.
MTV was our MTV.
Yeah, it's funny because you see what's happened with YouTube is now the MTV.
Right.
There's no video DJ. That doesn't exist.
Right.
It never really needed to exist. I think the thing is that what's interesting about yes, there's that whole monetization and people who get to make money, but I mean, I think there's a satisfaction of like, okay, I can put out something, I can post it on YouTube, and people can see it. Just the fact that they can see it.
Right.
They may not see it, but they can see it, and that is something I think very powerful.
It's true. It's true. And for musicians, this has gotten to be kind of easy now. I mean, it's like you can actually get on Spotify, pretty easily. There's services out there, and we use them, and that like you can, you record your music, you submit it, it goes up on Spotify, it goes up into like various digital distribution channels, whether or not somebody sees it or whatever, but at least you're in the game, So in that respect, yeah, we're a lot better off. Booking shows now is immensely easier. I mean, even as 96, when we were really starting to try to book bands back in the college days, with the buddies. I mean, you had to actually, send in the mail, a cassette tape or a physical CD with a photograph. You had to actually, have a print photograph in an envelope and press clippings, clippings from the newspaper. You would clip those out and put those in the kit, and they call that a press kit. And you had to send that to, however 15, 20 different clubs that you wanted to go play at, or newspapers that you wanted to, magazines or whatever that you wanted to have review your music. Now is, you can do all that in a day, and have a tour booked, based off like, your web presence or whatever, just the music that you can just check out at the click of a mouse. So it's way easier to do things now. I mean, I don't know if it necessarily makes anything better, but because at the end of the day, you still got to make it. You still have to have people making content that's worth watching. And I guess that's kind of where I'm coming, like who makes the decision as to like what's good and like what's going to be meaningful in the culture. And like, and in my view, that's where the education comes in. You're talking about education, that I think it's important that we all have a good liberal arts education so that we can make informed decisions about the kind of work that we're doing, and that like we can, we're not just technical barbarians, like technically excellent barbarians. I mean, we know how to like do math equations just smart, like George Carlin said, want to be just smart enough to operate the machinery, but not too smart to know what's going on behind the scenes. It's like we need to know what's going on in the world so that we can like actually, have a culture that's worth having, I guess. So
yeah, I think this whole COVID-19 thing, and in a lot of ways, is I don't know about you, but it's really unnerved me to the point that I have to say that I almost doubted what's the point of painting,
right.
I mean, it's like I could be dead next week. What do I do with my life? And, what's going to happen to my family? What's this going to, how is all going to pan out? Where there's just so many unknowns that have been going on, and just, it's scary with people that have that are losing their jobs, that are out of work, and and I think this is one of those few times where nobody's safe. I mean, it felt like, feels like, and I don't think we're done with how this is all going to pan out. I don't think we all know how this is all going to pan out.
Well, I would say that like we've never been safe. I mean, I would say that like, safety has, I don't know if that's ever really existed. And, kind of like getting in with this, the thing about the military life and like, life in Virginia Beach and, kind of what I see now looking back, the no alarms and no surprises, this idea that like, if I do my job and I do what people tell me to do, I'm going to be taken care of. I'm going to have health insurance. I'm going to have an income and stuff like that. But I don't know if that ever really existed or exists. And if that kind of security did, at what cost? And that was always it's like, but you stifle so many parts of yourself to live in this society, or stifle others for that matter, and so I don't know if that safety that you're talking about, that was stripped away by COVID-19 has ever really been existed or so like in my view, it's like you just had no choice but to do what you wanted to do because what you felt like you had in your heart or whatever, because like, getting a job at the call center is just wasn't an option. I mean, because, I may have an income or whatever, but, what good is the Bible? What good is it if you gain the whole world if you lose your soul in the process? It's like,
absolutely.
So like in that respect, that's like, I don't know if safety ever really was a thing to have or strive for. So, so maybe there's this other idea that like, this is the moment Joe Strummer had, trained us for, like, like what Henry Rollins had said, this is it. This is the time, to where the people that, such as ourselves that have like kind of, had this, this relationship with safety, or like this idea of ourselves that existed beyond like, what the world has told us, the man has been telling us what to do. We want to be creative, and we want to, think creatively, and in spite of like what the world is like, maybe dictating upon us. It's like, so this is an opportunity for us, to kind of maybe, for people like us at least, to set an example and, and to like continue to work on stuff that's passionate on ourselves. That's good for us. That's good for our community. It's good for people and inspiring to folks. That's awful high and mighty of me to say about myself, I suppose, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any kids, and I don't have a big paycheck, so that's all I got. Apart from my wife and my relationship with her. But real talk, man.
Huh?
Real talk, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think, but how would you say? I think in a lot of ways we were lulled into the safety net to some degree.
Sure.
And I admit I've been lulled into this safety net, and but at the same time, even if you're in the safety net, I mean, it's like, how would you say, oh, let's say you've been hanging off a tree limb with a swing, and then suddenly the rope is rotting.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's the swing is, that rope is going to rot and it's going to break. And then when you fall, that's when reality kicks in. And, I think a lot of us, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that's like, it's like anything else. You just don't want to, you're hesitant to want to give up, to willing to sacrifice, I would just say there's a safety, if you will. It's one of those things where it's like, if I were to lose everything and have to start over again.
Right.
How much are you willing to lose? And, it really comes down, I think, for a lot of artists. I think some artists are able to how would you say, cut the umbilical cord and can deal with a more harsh or a more how would you say, they don't have to rely on, they can quickly get rid of their 9-to-5 job.
Right.
And,
I don't know, like I see a couple of different things, like kind of like in what you're talking about. I mean, the first is like on one hand, I think people are entitled to to their lives. They're entitled to and to a livelihood. My politics, my way of thinking, gonna lend themselves to like a little bit more of a socialist kind of understanding of the world. And like, I don't necessarily think that, the Reagan era, the course that the United States has taken since, since the Cold War, I suppose, we're still living with that. I mean, there's so many ways that America is great, but then so many ways that America is just like a hellhole, a nightmare for people. But like on some level, we have to look out for each other. We have to have people feel safe. We have to have people that actually have some kind of safety. That's not necessarily, in my view, not necessarily based on like their job or their vocation or like whatever. It's like, so yeah, how you negotiate that, how that actually plays out, in the world, and how that's going to play out in the United States, that remains to be seen. I don't know. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's plenty of people that have bought into this idea and they've invested in it, and it's not fair for us now to pull for the government or whatever, the culture or whoever, for society to just kind of pull the rug out from under them because they didn't think about the fact that people might get sick in this world and that like it will upend our whole deal. It's like, there were some smart people that have thought about these issues before and had put structures in place, but then we see fit to remove them, in the next administration. So, it's like, we've got to look out for each other. We've got to set up a system. We've got to set up a way that's like, where people can be safe. They can have a living, raise their kids, and have a life that's meaningful to them. I think that's completely within our capacity to do as a nation, as a government. We're smart enough to do it. Our interests have been sold out to other big business and other things. This, like I said, I got a whole spiel. I got a whole set of ideas about this, whether or not we want to get into it.
I think from an artist's point of view, I would just say is that, for me, it's like, this whole thing is really, and I guess what I failed to really mention was like, I have working galleries and those galleries are closed.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for the internet, imagine where I would be.
Oh, right.
Trying to sell my work, and it's like as a musician, you're already there. You can't go and perform.
Right.
You can't go out and tour. And I guess that's kind of where I've looked at, how.
Yeah, I mean, we're social people. We're social beings, It's like we rely, and not just on music and on art, but for food and for everything. I mean, I mean, church, Sunday church services, Saturday, synagogue or whatever, all those are all social functions. It's all social stuff. I mean, it's like we have things that we do just for social, you know. We do social things just to do social things. It's like that's the kind of people, that's the kind of beings that we are. So yeah, everybody's affected by it. It's a nightmare. Hopefully it's temporary. I mean, hopefully it's temporary, but.
And hopefully, that if something like this were to happen again, we'll be better prepared for sure. Because,
oh boy,
when I interviewed my grandmother and her brothers, and the stuff they told me, I still think about it. It's still like they grew up on a farm in West Virginia during the Depression. And when you think about it, it's like during the Depression, they live on a farm. The only reason they have food is because they grow it. But when they were saying, yeah, we just go out and, the field, dig up a cabbage, take what we need, wrap it up in newspaper, bury it back in the ground. How many people today would say, hey, out there in the field, there's a cabbage buried, and you're going to dig it up, and you're going to unwrap the newspaper, you're going to take that cabbage off, and you're going to eat it.
Right.
And people are going to be disgusted because they're like, no, that was in the ground.
Right.
We're so used to manufacturing, prepackaged food. Pardon me. People forget where it came from.
Totally.
And I think that, not everybody, but, and I thought about it, and it's like, and then they were telling me about, like, they had a fireplace, but it didn't reach the house, the rest of the house. And, they're sitting there saying, yeah, how'd you stay warm at night? And he goes, well, what we did was we crumpled up newspapers, and we would shove them through the walls, we didn't have insulation. We just had boards, and we would just push the newspaper in between the boards to keep the wind from blowing in.
Right.
Then we'd stuff our shirts with newspaper.
Golly.
And because they had so many brothers and sisters, they would all just like cuddle up next to each other.
Right.
And keep warm. I mean, in the winter in West Virginia, in the mountains. And I think about that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just like a hard living.
Hard scrabble, yeah.
A hard living that I never, and I just like, it just blows me away of, and they obviously were more grateful. You could tell they were more grateful for the things that they had, and that generation definitely was not materialistic.
Right.
My grandmother really did not want, she did not have things that she really held on to, and I think that's because she already knew what it was like to lose everything. In fact,
Right.
I think a couple times in her life she lost everything,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's kind of where we're at. Is like, I don't think a lot of us, myself included, we're not ready to lose everything. We're not mentally or psychologically prepared to lose everything.
Right.
I think that's kind of where I kind of had failed to earlier. That's kind of what I was getting at was, I don't think a lot of us, I mean, some of us are, but I definitely don't feel like I am. And I think that, affects, my output of art. And I mean, it's like it hit like a. Right. What am I going to do? I don't have any, I could lose my job. I could, my wife could lose a job, and then what? Where are we going to go? How do you take care of your kids? And, I think that's the perspective that I lack, is that ability to lose everything.
Right. Well, hopefully you won't have to. I mean,
I feel confident now, but there were definitely, when this thing was going down, it was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
I don't think America has never seen anything like this since the Great Depression.
Certainly not.
And
there's a lot of complicated forces that are working on the United States right now. Like, and it's amazing. I mean, just thinking about like the minds that it's going to take to really fully understand like all the stuff that's going on. So like thinking about just the pandemic is one thing. It's like we have a crisis, unfolding on Facebook and on social media right now with with racial profiling and racial injustice. That kid jogging, getting shot by those two dudes is like, that's terrible, terrible news. But that's a history that we've been working on for 400 years, in this land. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any solution to that, but that yet another problem. And then after that, what else have we got going on here? That's like, we've got the pandemic, we've got racial issues, we've got economic issues now that are like massive, it's like, there's a lot going on. And then, culturally, I mean, the internet itself, oh my gosh, that's like a whole other territory of like, this is like, the internet is as important an invention, to the course of human society as like the printing press. I mean, this is a big freaking deal. The fact that we're talking and doing this on the internet, this is, the idea of information existing like in this sphere, and whether or not it's true. They struggle. I imagine they struggle the same way with like books. People print lies in books just as easily as they can say them. You can upload a lie on a video. It's just as easy as you can say it anywhere else. But with this technology, misinformation is going to have a specific kind of signature, that's going to be for this generation. It's going to mean something, and we have to come to terms with that as well. So. There's just like so much going on. So like the minds that are going to be needed, to actually make something real happen for folks and to provide people with the safety that they need, to raise their families. That's a tall order. And, and I hope that like, our art and our work is like going to contribute to that, to that cause. So, just kind of, making ourselves better, making ourselves, and providing us with opportunities to kind of improve ourselves, which is really like what art, I think, is supposed to do, for the artist at least. It's just, who knows?
Definitely music can, I think it's one of those things, and I don't know, how do you feel? Do you feel like this generation do you think there's a potential for this generation to step up like the 60s?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's potential. I mean, but did they really step up? I mean, so we had the 60s counterculture, but like we just saw a documentary, about the revolutions. All the revolutions that we were hoping for have kind of failed. Who was it? I think it was HR or somebody in the Bad Brains was talking about it. That like, the 60s counterculture thing didn't really amount to anything. Nothing really came of it. It was Black Sabbath. It was a Black Sabbath documentary that I was watching. And that was what their complaint was, is like, so you have all these hippies and, peace and love and stuff, and it all ended with Charles Manson. And so and then like you go through the 80s and like, there were people that were protesting, the use of, or the proliferation of nuclear weapons, there were people trying to get the ERA passed, but, has ERA passed yet? Has it been ratified yet? We still have like we could blow the world up 2 or 3 times, with the nuclear weapons that we have, that no one seems to know where they are anymore. So, yeah, there's no, I don't know. I mean, there's hope in this. Yeah, certainly. I mean, there are human beings that are like coming up and like doing good work and like doing good works, and there's no reason to not believe that we can't be pessimistic about these people, so otherwise, I mean, what good is, we're going nowhere. But on the other hand, I mean, you have to be realistic and like, it's like we can change the world, but I don't know, what's it going to look like? And you push the pimple down in one spot and it pops up someplace else. So like, I don't know. But compassion doesn't go out of style, and it's always there, and the need for it is always there. And so like, it's if that's your starting point or your ending point, or if that's where you end up, then you'll be fine.
What about
No matter what.
What about as far as your music and where it is and the message? Where do you ultimately hope the end message is for the music that you make?
Well, there are a couple of things on that. It's not up to me, and it's like, and the music that I do is so weirdly, oddly specific to me as a person. So the fact that anybody would get anything out of it is just like, well, that's a bonus. I mean, and obviously, I mean, I hope that that's happening, but I don't know how to write music that people are going to like. And then sometimes when I hear people that seem to have, written people for, I don't know, written good dance music or club music or like cool Mars Volta kinds of, like, ooh, it's really cool in art and, it's like, it hasn't really appealed to me, so like, I'm not saying that Mars Volta is like a bad band or anything, but that's just something that people have pointed out as like super cool, that I've noticed, Fugazi falls in that, although I love Fugazi. There's like certain things have just kind of come up in the culture as like being like really like something to aspire to. And many times I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't. So like I just do what I do, and if people happen to get it, well, then that's great. But I do have an idea of like what I want to say, and I do have an idea of like what I think what I think is coming across, and that whole idea is just about personal liberty, about personal freedom, and and thinking critically about like who you are and like who you want to be, and giving yourself the permission to do that. That's really where it's at. So it's just about ultimately. The music I do is from kind of like a negative kind of perspective, but there's this little, light at the end of the tunnel, or this little thing in it that's, because music is objectively good. There's a little thing that just kind of like, that offers some sort of permission, to be yourself and to allow yourself the feelings that you're having, and just be who you are. And
that's the hard thing to do is to give yourself the permission to be who you are.
Right.
I think that everybody, I mean, definitely we touched on it earlier, but I mean, I think that still as an artist, giving your own self the permission to be yourself is so hard. I mean, it's so. I remember I was in college, and I was talking to one of my professors, like, well, it was about style and finding your style and finding yourself. And I really wanted to get on the fast track to finding my style. And I just really wasn't getting.
Yeah. And it's like, that's a big deal. Coming from a surfer,
skateboarder.
Yeah. Coming from a surfer, skateboarder person, that's like a big deal. Your style is everything, always Stacy Peralta, is always harping on. It's like, oh, style is everything, So like that's a big deal, finding style.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think my teacher understood, how important it was for me to, I was just like, well, what do you get? And I think the thing, maybe he said this and I didn't listen, but I think now. It's all about, surrounding yourself with people that you like, and then being able to discard it.
Mm-hmm.
To say, okay, I like this, and I like this. Now I'm going to throw it away, and I'm just going to create. And that's
right.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's very hard. I mean, it's how many times have we've heard a band or hear new music and it's, oh, it just sounds like the Beatles, or it sounds like Metallica, or it sounds like this band or that band, and the influence is so overwhelming that they don't even have a style. They're just going so retro that would you say it's kind of like that band? I like the band, but I mean I can totally see where people harp on them as Greta Van. Greta Van Fleet
or whatever. They rip off Led Zeppelin so bad.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoy it, and I mean they do it really well. But at the same time, it's kind of like there's going to be a time, and I'm sure they're, how do you say, they kind of they hit too early.
Mhm.
Not by any fault of their own, other than that they were really good. And then the song, at least they're not doing covers. I mean, the songs they're writing are really good. But I would say it's kind of like any other band. I think there's a curse to striking lightning too soon.
Right, right. Yeah.
And yet, for those that can't seem to strike lightning, it's really frustrating.
Yeah. But the other thing too is that like and this is a theme that I've kind of picking up in our conversation here tonight, this idea that like, that music or that art, that you want to make a living doing what you love, right? You want to make a living doing art and like, and I've had to kind of come to the terms with the fact that like it may not happen. But there's actually like and that's not necessarily a bad thing because Ian MacKaye, excuse me, of Fugazi, he ran a record label.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I mean, his day job was running Discord Records, but he went out and toured with Fugazi and like with Minor Threat, and he goes out and tours. And so what? Maybe not the best example, but the idea is that he had a day job, and then with the band he could do whatever he wanted. He didn't have to like. This is the thing like about being yourself. It's like when someone else is paying the bill, that's what makes it difficult. We talk about this conservative society that we live in, and it's like these people have to behave a certain way in order for workers in our society have to behave a certain way in order to be accepted within a corporate structure, within the structure. So that requires a certain amount of like behavior modification. You have to act properly in a workplace. You can't show up with a hangover. You can't, shoot heroin in a bathroom stall. You can't like, I don't know, you can't throw pizza at your buddy at the next cubicle. There's just certain kinds of behavior that are required of you to do, to work and live in these environments. Artists are like myself, I just can't submit to that. So that's part of like I want to throw pizza at my bandmates. I'm damn well gonna in the tour bus or whatever when the time comes. That's what I'm gonna do. But like, so when money gets involved with it, it's like it changes everything, and it forces you to like consider things that you wouldn't normally consider, for your own personal satisfaction in your own art. So it very well may be that working your day job could actually be the best thing for your art. Because you're not relying on your art to make you money, to make a product, a commodity that needs to be sold and like, and promoted and, and you can just be like what you want it to be. And you can look at it as your own accomplishment, as your own thing. And then if people like it, then you've really struck gold in that respect that like, but I don't know. I don't know if like anymore. I'm 48 years old now, and I haven't made a living, doing music. I mean, it's made me some money, but it doesn't pay the bills, But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, and I don't know if it did start paying the bills, whether I'd be happy with that, because like that comes with its own host of problems and complications as well. That I only have a slight understanding of what that might even be. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean it's like I've had friends that they're full-time artists and they've got to paint for the galleries.
Right.
And I've had some of my friends that they paint full-time, they work really hard. And they basically say, they've said, be glad you can paint whatever you want to paint now because,
it may not be that way when you get a job. Yeah. Well, many times, we record and, go to the studios and like do work, and like the engineers and the people that work in the studios are like, man, I'm so glad you're here today. every day we have to work with country music. We have to work with these up and coming country artists that are terrible. And, or like, it's just the same old, singing songs about the truck and the train and, and getting left at the altar and, all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, yeah. So, you can make money, with your art, but is that a good thing?
Yeah, that's
the
true.
other thing too is that we're not just doing this for people in our own time. And the sad fact is that maybe the value of the work that we do now won't be understood for another, if our work is preserved at all, it won't be understood or appreciated for another, 50 or 100 years after we're gone. And so, but there's been plenty of times where we've said, people that have since died, that we've loved their work and we cherish it, and it influences and it has inspired us to do these creative things that, we've done. So, I mean, Jimi Hendrix is a big deal, Van Gogh is a big deal, there's a whole litany, a whole host of culture and history that's gone before us that like had no value at the time. Maybe Hendrix is not like a good example because he was famous, but
yeah.
But you know what I mean? You know where I'm going with.
Van Gogh is definitely a great example, and and I've told people, I don't want to be, the dead famous artist.
Right.
Nobody wants to be the dead famous artist. This is,
He didn't have much control over that, and like, but he was the greatest painter of the modern era of.
He's definitely the most loved. Definitely the most loved. And I'm not always the biggest on Van Gogh, but I definitely concede that he is one of the most loved, and rightly so, because he worked hard. He didn't really have hardly any formal education of art, and he learned from painting from life.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who paints from life as much as I can, or paints as best as I can, and
right,
this is one of the exceptions, but at the same time it's you have to take it for, like you said, what you got to take what you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a hard thing to be true to yourself, and I think that's kind of what I love about what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is I love talking to people, and I found that I'm able to paint and talk at the same time, and it's kind of like I'm almost painting on autopilot, and it's a weird thing that I don't know. I mean, maybe a lot of people can do this, but and maybe there's not a lot. But I found that it's kind of interesting, just for my how would you say, ADD personality.
Mm-hmm.
That I enjoy this, and I've seen where other people are doing interesting things, and I was like, I love painting. And that was the one thing I did when I did my character art. I love talking to people and drawing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, I was like, man, I wish I could enjoy that again.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so fun. And I know that sometimes some of my best paintings or breakthroughs that I had when I was starting out with painting, happened while I was on the phone with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, gosh, if I wasn't on the phone with this person, I would be literally struggling, and I would spend hours and hours and hours trying to get it right because I'm overthinking it. And at the same time, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just something fun about, painting somebody and getting to know them.
Right,
and
right.
I said, I don't really know anybody who's doing this.
Right.
And that's but it's fun. I mean, I've had a blast catching up with you, and getting to talk about things we never really got to talk about.
Thank you. It's been super cool, and I've enjoyed myself, hanging out. So yeah, I mean, I think we've had a productive time here. We went into some deep territory.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna make the coup de grace, and just gonna put a little bit of in here, and we'll see what you think. I mean, and that's the thing is I don't look at these as masterpieces. These are kind of just sketch painting.
Just kind of screwing around.
And I look at them, I'm like, man, this was really fun. And I realized that at some point that I'm gonna do one of these, and it's gonna not be good. It's gonna be horrible. I'll be like, this is terrible.
Well, I hope it's not this one.
This one I feel really good about.
Well, awesome. Thank you.
And I mean, you provide me a super picture. I mean, and I knew, and I said, when I was thinking about people, and I was thinking about this, and I knew not too long after I formulated, I said, Erik is definitely someone I have to get on. But I just didn't know. I thought that this whole Skype thing wasn't really as possible as it is. Now, if this thing stopped recording, then we're screwed.
Right.
And I can't tell if it's still recording. Oh, it's still recording.
Yeah, it's on. So yeah,
yeah, it's still recording. And I thought, I said, maybe the feedback I've gotten from the other two have been like, do more of these. These are great. And I'm like, who'd want to spend we've been talking for 2 hours. You realize that?
I know. We put some time into it.
Yeah, we've been talking for 2 hours, but it's been a great 2 hours. And
you might have to edit it down a little bit, but.
No, I'm going to post it up.
All right, there you go.
Just that, straight 2 hours from when we recorded. So it'd be boom. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not going to sign it right now because I'm probably a little tired, but I'm going to show you and see what you think. So I'm going to take this off. This is like the big reveal. This is always fun. What do you think it looks like?
I can't see it right now.
Okay.
What does it look like?
Yeah, what do you think it's going to look like?
I don't know. It's gonna be portrait orientation. It's gonna be framed, 3/4 to 1/3. I don't know. I have no idea what it's gonna look like.
Yeah. All right. So here we go.
Oh man, that's intense. That's rad.
Yeah. So
that is epic.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. That's epic, dude. Thank you so much. I think you might have been generous with the hair on top, but yeah.
Yeah.
Badass. I'm down, bro. Nailed it.
Yeah, I like it. I came out pretty good. I'm happy with it.
Awesome.
For 2 hours. Dude, this has been awesome. We'll have to do this again for sure. Maybe we'll find another topic, a range of things to talk about for sure. But
absolutely.
This is a blast. I had fun. And for anybody watching, and I know we kind of talked about it, but where can people find your music?
It's streaming everywhere. It's what is it called again? It's called Spotify. That's I guess where a lot of people go. We have a couple of cool little creative little playlists that you can check out. Our music is on Spotify, hurtstolaugh.com. It's on iTunes. We sell our music on our Bandcamp, on the Bandcamp website. Golly, I'm all articulate all this whole time, and then you ask me like where to get music, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about. So all the usual places. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and all that as well. So it's
just Hurts to Laugh.
Hurts to Laugh, nothing fancy. HurtsTolaugh.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks again. Give my best to your parents. They just celebrated their
50th wedding anniversary. Yeah. So that
is
April
awesome.
20th. Yeah.
Yeah, your parents have been super cool. In fact, so super and so cool that they let me use your address so I could go to Green Run.
All right. That's right.
You remember that?
I do remember that. I do.
Yeah, that was the whole reason I got to go to Green Run. I was like, screw PA, man.
Yeah, forget it.
Jerks. I'm gonna go to Green Run.
Ghost
Town.
my
buddies were. So yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Doug, thanks, man. I had a really good time. It's good catching.
Awesome. Yeah. stay safe, be well, give my best to your wife, Robbie, and I will see you again.
Yes, sir. I will see you soon.
All right, awesome. Bye.
Thanks, Doug.
You're still here, aren't you? Wow. You stayed for the whole 2 hours. Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for staying for the whole 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed it. But I'd have a favor to ask of you. What should I call these interviews, portrait paintings, thing-middings, whatever you want to call them? I have no idea. I mean, I kind of have an idea, but I don't like them. So if you have an idea about what I should call this, comment below. I would love to hear your ideas. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I look forward to doing many more.